Let's see what the news has in store for us this week. As always, we go to Copilot first. Okay, so here are the top UK news stories from independent non-mainstream media, according to Copilot. So, the top is National Herald UK. CMA targets Apple and Google over app payment restrictions. The UK Competition and Markets Authority is intensifying scrutiny of Apple and Google's control over in-app payments, signalling potential regulatory action. The CMA, Competition and Markets Authority. So what they're saying effectively there is that Apple and Google have what they would class as a monopoly when it comes to app payment. Okay, well, maybe they do. We know that Apple and Google are controlled by billionaires. Maybe that's how they get a lot of their money. First maternity and neonatal commissioner to be appointed. A new commissioner role is being created to address systemic issues in maternity and neonatal care following multiple high-profile inquiries. Now, if you followed me for a while, I did some research on the problems in our neonatal and maternity units right the way across the UK. There was an inquiry that was being done into the failings in the maternity and neonatal care. And if you do remember it from the research we did, it's on YouTube. You can find it. You'll find it on YouTube. They were concerned that people were pushing natural birth and in favour of any other form of birth. Now, a lot of people I know would push natural birth because it's a natural thing to do. But the research did show that there was failings when it came to complications and problems in maternity care. And the staff in the hospitals didn't feel that they were listened to, and they didn't feel that they could take their complaints anywhere either. The inquiry actually went in depth and drew upon a lot of issues and a lot of problems. So from my perspective, a neonatal and maternity commissioner would probably be a good thing. But we'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens. Resident doctors accept a pay deal. Now, the resident doctors, we've had pay disputes with the doctors for a long time, and I've argued that they are doing an incredible job and they don't get paid well enough. So that's a good thing. So it's ending the national health strike dispute. Independent coverage highlights the settlement's implications for staffing stability and long-term National Health Service reform. That's come from the National Herald again. It's a good thing. If they've accepted a pay deal, that means that it was acceptable to them, because the offer that was being made by our government to them was not good enough, and hence the strikes. Drone transformation moves to centre of UK defence strategy. The UK is shifting defence priorities towards autonomous systems and maritime security upgrades. Drones have become a very common thing in warfare, and I would argue we're not in warfare, but I can understand our country needing some form of defence strategy. I wonder if it links in with the new defence strategy that's been signed with Turkey, possibly, maybe. Don't know. 15 billion armed forces renewal plan, a major defence investment package focusing on modernisation and maritime commando capabilities. Our military is really, I think it's very depleted. I heard someone once say to me that you couldn't fill a football stadium with the amount of military we have. So if anything did happen and we were attacked in any way, shape or form, we probably wouldn't have the manpower to be able to staff it. Hence the drones, because they're they're independent. Like they're not, yeah, and they'll be automated, autonomous systems. Autonomous systems always worry me because we're now looking at AI, and AI is not very discriminative when it comes to civilians and targets, and we know these things because of, think about the very first strike that happened in the Iran war when America targeted a school. So that was off the back of information. So that would have been information they had received. And I don't know whether that was autonomous. I don't know whether that was off of AI, but the information was wrong. So when it comes to autonomous systems, not so great. And modernization of our armed forces in a renewal plan, 15 billion. I understand we need defense. I understand we need to update. We'll see. Asylum costs plan raises fairness questions. Independent analysis of new government proposal for asylum processing and settlement costs. Well, at the moment, if asylum seekers come into this country, they're taken and they're put into hotels, and the hotels are closed to the public and they become asylum hotels, and that has caused a big problem in this country. So it would be interesting to know what the government proposals are for asylum processing and settlement costs. Okay, The Observer. Though owned by Guardian Media Group, which is not independent, its editorial content often includes long-form independent commentary, included here because search surfaced non-mainstream style analysis pieces. AI as a relationship referee. A cultural analysis exploring how people increasingly rely on AI to mediate interpersonal conflict. How interesting. We are losing our ability to communicate with each other. British venture capital boom, but only for AI firms. Reporting on how UK investment disproportionately favours AI startups, raising concerns about sector imbalance. AI startups. We have quite a lot of AI. I mean, obviously, I use AI. We use 3 for our news hub. It really depends very much on who is programming them algorithmically, how they're being programmed, and if they're learning models, then they'll learn from the people that utilize them. So, yeah. And when it comes to AI, one of the big problems we have with AI is the data centers that are needed to house them. And the data centers are being built on vast swaths of land. And in order to keep the data centers cool, we need to make sure that there's enough water running through. So water is a problem. So British culture boom in the AI firms doesn't sound great to me. Apple's lawsuit against OpenAI. Independent style tech commentary on how the case could reshape the AI sector. That's from The Observer. Apple's lawsuit against OpenAI. Now, I didn't know anything about Apple's lawsuit against OpenAI, so I'm not really sure what that's about. Okay, reform donor lost thousands betting on Iran. A political finance story examining donor behavior and geopolitical risk. Well, I don't understand why a reform donor would have lost thousands betting on Iran, because from what I can see, Iran have come out of this conflict on the up. One would argue that they have succeeded in thwarting Israel and America's illegal war. So I'm not really sure what that's about. Okay, what these stories signal: regulatory pressure is rising on big tech. UK defence strategy is shifting towards drones, maritime security, and large-scale modernisation. Healthcare reform remains active with new oversight roles and strike resolutions. Political finance and party dynamics continue to generate independent scrutiny. And cultural and ethical debates around AI are becoming mainstream in independent commentary. Okay, so nothing from a health and wellbeing point of view, really. It's not very political either. I mean, we've got political finance and party dynamics, but not as political as it has been recently. So that's it from Copilot. We will now ask Claude exactly the same question. So show me the top UK news stories from the past 7 days, exclude mainstream media. So here's a roundup of the top UK news stories from the past week. And it's pulled from Novara Media, Byline Times, The Canary, and Open Democracy. No mainstream outlets included. The Canary's debanking crisis widens into a press freedom story. Lloyds Banking Group cut off the Canary's account despite the outlet banking with them for almost a decade, and the bank has offered no explanation despite repeated requests. The Canary said it's now in a financially precarious situation and doesn't know when the frozen funds will be returned or how this will affect its ability to get another account. It's already had knock-on effects. The Canary was forced to suspend its fledgling print edition, which had only launched 2 weeks earlier in 6,500 newsagents across England and Wales, because it's unable to pay all its staff. The NUJ has weighed in, warning that a major bank cutting off an independent publisher's financial access without explanation sets a disturbing precedent for press freedom, and the potential loss of an alternative voice would be a blow to media plurality. Lloyds will have been informed by someone higher up than them that it had to be done. And there is only one reason why the Canary would have their voice cut like that. And that's because of the truthfulness of their coverage and the vast amount of people that tune in to listen and watch them and are interested in what they've got to say, because they're not captured media. So it's been cut off because they don't play to the narrative that, and it can only be government. It can only be government. And we know our government is captured. We know that our government has foreign countries lobbying and billionaires lobbying. So it has to be because the Canary speaks the truth. And they couldn't do anything. They've gone after journalists, they've gone after individual people, and they haven't got anywhere. And because we know Labour Together, the awful organisation that went after a load of journalists, Labour Together are the ones that targeted Corbyn and got him thrown out. If it doesn't fit the government narrative and they can't do anything about it, the only way they know of doing anything at all is to take the finances away. So for me, it's a form of piracy. I think it's outrageous, outrageous. Reform UK's money keeps drawing scrutiny again. Byline Times' ongoing Reform Uncovered investigation continues to probe the party's finances, with campaigners questioning why firms are choosing to donate tens of thousands of pounds they apparently don't have to Farage's party. Separately, Open Democracy has been digging into a pro-reform political action committee modelled on the US system, and into controversial reform-linked figures operating out of a small office in a town of 11,000 people in the Balkans. How interesting. Okay. Well, we know from last week that Farage has been taking a lot of money from some quite corrupt people. So good on the Byline Times and good on Open Democracy for pushing and following it through, because Farage would have you believe that he's one of the people. And I said last week that he's part of the establishment. He's not one of us. He would lie to you and try to have you believe that he's one of us, but he's not. Fossil fuel and corporate lobbying under Labour. Novara Media reports that ministers have met fossil fuel lobbyists 500 times in Labour's first year in power. On the Burnham succession specifically, Open Democracy flagged that his likely Chief of Staff James Purnell led a firm representing arms, fossil fuel and water company clients, and separately reported that the UK's weak lobbying laws leave the public in the dark about Flint Global's vast access to government under Purnell. Now, I mentioned to you, it's probably about 2 or 3 months ago, about this fossil fuel thing and the fact that it generates tons and tons of money. So when it comes to climate change and worrying about the climate crisis, the reason for that is because it generates an awful lot of money. So, yeah, corporate lobbying under Labour, that's so that you can get more money. Foreign lobbying and democratic safeguards. Byline Times continues its wider investigation into how open UK politics is to foreign money, with anti-corruption campaigners warning the UK's political system is open to abuse and infiltration by unlawful foreign finance. Unlock Democracy has also released a report warning the UK is inadequately prepared to defend its constitution against an extreme government. I mentioned to you last week that I will be bringing to you the petition that was debated in Parliament, and I'm going to do that as part of a research piece which will be coming out on a Wednesday on YouTube on the Research Hub, because it is disgusting, the amount of lobbying and the amount of gaslighting that goes into having an explanation for what's going on when it comes to foreign lobbying of our political system. We're being gaslit. The whole of the debate over the influence of a foreign country in our politics was full of people who tried to gaslight, and it never went anywhere. But that is what when I do the research, I will argue is more telling than anything. Okay, Andy Burnham's early premiership. Coverage continues to track Burnham's start in number 10, including his pledge of growth in every postcode. And Open Democracy's argument that he'd be wise to focus on how the economy is being cheated of billions of pounds a year, a reference to tax avoidance and offshore wealth. Yeah. Well, we know there were figures that showed that when they complain about things like benefit fraud, that actually tax avoidance and offshore wealth benefit fraud is a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion of money that is lost and not covered compared to tax avoidance and offshore wealth. So, yeah, our government would have you believe that, it's benefit cheats that keep making our economy. No, they don't make our economy worse. It's tax avoidance and offshore wealth that makes the economy worse. So that's it from Claude. Want me to go further on any of these? The debanking story in particular seems like the one with the most live fallout right now. Yeah, I would agree. Because if it can happen to the canary, it can happen to anyone. And if you remember in Australia, when the farmers came out and protested and the lorry drivers came out and protested, they debanked them because they were going against what government wanted. And it's going to start happening in this country. It wouldn't surprise me if big voices who speak out against political figures get debanked, because it starts with the canary. It starts with our journalism and our media that's truthful, and then it will start filtering down to anybody who has anything to say against the government. Okay, that's it from Claude. And as always, good old Grok will ask Grok the same question. So here are the top UK news stories from the past 7 days, according to Grok. So Keir Starmer's final acts as MP and transition to Andy Burnham. Starmer is stepping down, with Burnham positioned as the likely successor. Uncontested Labour leadership path after securing massive MP backing. Critics call the process undemocratic, bypassing members. Yeah, it is undemocratic. He's not elected. We would argue, or I would argue, that Labour were elected, but they were elected on policies that they said were going to be put in place, and none of them were. So an unelected Prime Minister, when it comes to being uncontested, because he's got MPs backing, that's because he's been deemed fit by the billionaire class. He's okay to carry on the policies we don't want, the policies that we're not happy with as citizens. He's okay because he'll toe the line. Like, he'll be the good puppetician to the global puppet masters. Key last moves: a major UK-India trade deal effective around now, allowing increased Indian immigration workers plus extension of national insurance exemption for Indian workers, making it cheaper for employers to hire them over Brits in some views. Strong backlash on immigration impacts. Now, I wonder why that would be. I wonder why Keir Starmer would think it would be a great idea to bring more immigrants into the country, considering knowing how the general populace in this country feel about immigration. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe he's doing a FU to all of us on his way out. Other deliveries highlighted, possibly by supporters, sceptically by others: 5.2 billion service deal with Switzerland and Gibraltar Treaty, Ukraine defence procurement and jobs, and Starmer receiving France's Légion d'honneur. So the Medal of Honor. Oh, yeah, well, Starmer loves his little French man, doesn't he? He loves his little German man as well. If you remember, there was a very nice picture of them all hiding their, what I would allege, and has been alleged by others, their drug stash, because it was all sitting out on the table. So, yeah, they nice little kind of group they formed together. Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that he's getting the France's Legion of Honor, or a Medal of Honor. But when it comes to 5.2 billion service deal with Switzerland, not sure what that would be about. Gibraltar Treaty, not sure what that's about. Ukraine, We just need to stop giving money to Ukraine. So now Grok is the only one to bring this up. I expected this to be on all three. Murder of former Minister Anne Widdecombe. Anne Widdecombe was killed in a targeted attack at her Devon home. A 28-year-old man from Rotherham was arrested. Counter-terrorism involved due to political materials, including communist literature. This sparked widespread outrage, conspiracy discussions, and debates on political violence and security. There's no love lost for me when it comes to Anne Widdecombe at all. Had she died peacefully in her sleep, I would have bid her a fond farewell, and I wouldn't have thought it to be tragic at all. I just don't really see eye to eye with Anne Widdecombe. I'm not in her camp, haven't really ever been in her camp. However, to have been targeted in her home, that's unacceptable. I don't like Starmer, as you know, but if he was targeted in his home, that would get my heckles up as well. It's not acceptable. It's really not acceptable. So no doubt this will evolve over time, because this has happened just last week. So yeah, there'll be more information, I think, coming out about that. IRGC proscribed as a terrorist organisation. Oh God, just like Palestine Action. The UK government used new National Security Act powers to ban Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist group. Significant in foreign policy and security circles. Well, we know why they've done that. We know why they've done that, because they are very good puppeteers. They're doing as they're told. They're doing as they're told. There's absolutely no reason for us to proscribe Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. There is absolutely no reason at all. And why we can't just get along, why we can't just make peace. You would think peace, give peace a chance. Why not? Threats and security incidents involving Nigel Farage. A man arrested for threatening to murder Farage on X described himself as a terrorist. Farage has been a focal point amid political tensions. Yeah, well, yeah, Farage. It's a shame, because Farage is such a tit. Like, he really is an idiot. So he kind of holds himself up for these things. Related, a 14-year-old boy charged under the Terrorism Act over an alleged far-right plot targeting mosques in London. Oh, a 14-year-old boy. Well, he will be having his instruction from somebody that I could argue wouldn't be 14. A 14-year-old boy does not come up with far-right plots targeting mosques in London. So he'll have been put up to this by others who are probably much, much older. Proposed midnight social media curfew for 16 to 17-year-olds. Good grief. Oh, Starmer Burnham era announcement of restrictions on teen social media use. Framed as protection, but criticised as overreach by free speech advocates. Oh, that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It is overreach. 16 and 17-year-olds, if you're 16 or 17 in this country, you are old enough to be able to use social media and not be curfewed by our government. It's ridiculous. England's run in the 2026 World Cup. Football fever. England advanced deep semis versus Argentina with high stakes and national attention. Security concerns for matches noted in some reports. Well, I'm not I've not been following the football. I live in kind of, well, I live in an urban area, so like I get a lot of yay. So I do hear it. I do hear it because my neighbours love it. But I haven't followed any of the football, I must admit. So yeah, I wouldn't know. I couldn't tell you what England are doing. Other circulating themes: crime and immigration, video stories on burglaries, fake delivery riders in Benfleet, and broader migrant-related incidents gaining traction in Restore Britain style accounts. So Restore Britain is Mr. Lowe. Okay. Well, fake delivery riders in Benfleet. That doesn't sound good. Grooming gang Pakistan deportation issues. Ongoing anger over cases like Rochdale with calls for tough sanctions on non-cooperative countries. Well, I think that anybody who has been caught doing that in our country should be put in prison in our country. You could say that deporting them is the same kind of thing, but not really. Like if you're going to send them back to their own country, it says calls for tough sanctions on non-cooperative countries. Well, it's like it's talking about Pakistan in particular, and you can't hold Pakistan responsible for what its citizens are doing when they emigrate to our country. So I think if they've been caught, they should be put in prison in our country. I don't think it should be up to Pakistan. These reflect polarised online discourse with heavy emphasis on immigration, security failures, political transitions, and anti-establishment sentiment. Engagement is highest on X around Starmer's legacy, Widdicombe's death, and Farage-related events. So, a bit more political from Grok this week, a little bit more political, but not really, again, anything that I would cover from a health and well-being point of view. And I think there's some stories that are going to develop over time because some of them are really quite new. So I think we'll probably find out more about what's going on, especially about Anne Widdicombe. Like I say, not really a great fan of hers, but what happened was tragic, and I think we need to get to the bottom of what's going on. Okay, so that was the news for this week.